How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Yeah, I'm just so happy that you were able to come here today. I really been wanting to have this conversation, and particularly I wanted to have the conversation with you because I know that you have a different perspective than some, which is cool, and I love that. So I wanted to have you on to kind of talk about uh, just the differences in health and obesity and our food choices and culturally how we feel about that and how we look at things. So first, I want you to introduce yourself to us, and then we'll get started with the conversation.
All right, great day. So my name is Yael B. Yisrael, Yael by Yisrael. I am the owner of Flatbush Doulas, which we provide birth and postpartum doulas. We provide nutritional plans for preconception. We do consultations to really help you get an action plan for infertility and a host of female reproductive concerns. And my work is really based on feminine wellness. I come from a cultural perspective. I come from a perspective of being a Caribbean woman, someone who really sat at the feet of the elders and listened to this cultural exchange of information in terms of what health means for us as a people. As Afro-Asiatic people all over the world, I just see that we have a different perspective on health and wellness, on obesity, on fitness in general, on culture. And so, how we got into this conversation was because, I think I made a post on Facebook, right? And I said, fat shaming is one thing, but, you know, being overweight and the issues that come from it is another thing.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of discussion. Many people came to the conversation, and here we are. So,
Yeah. And I really love it because I stalk out the social media, different guests and different to have different conversations because a lot of times, oftentimes in our circles or in our small little parts of the world, we don't always get to hear these different perspectives, or we don't get to tap into different things, right? So social media does provide us a great platform to be able to reach out to other people to gain a little bit more, just different learnings, and I love that. So yes, let's talk about that because people do believe that if you say a person is overweight or obese, that's this new thing called fat shaming, and where you're trying to make them feel bad or you're talking about them when in reality sometimes, I mean, it's just kind of being observant, right? Like, oh, this person is what American standards consider overweight, right? And then some people say, well, how do you know this person is unhealthy? Because people that are small and thin can be unhealthy, which is true. But I wanted to talk about you know your background first of all, as far as being Caribbean, and how you feel culturally, you all feel about it, because there are some differences between cultures in how we view what we should eat, what we should not eat, and kind of how we should eat it, and what is healthy and what is not. I mean, that's really a real thing. So go ahead and get started with that.
all right. So, one of the things that I noticed, I taught a course. I kind of retired it for a little while, and I'll probably bring it back out. And it's called Birth and Postpartum for Us by Us. Now, most people who got into the course, they just wanted to know more so like doula type information. But a large chunk of the course was nutrition. So it's kind of like surprise, like you didn't know that's what you were going to come here and learn. Why
Yeah.
did I approach it in that way? Well, to me, when I started to get the idea to do the course, it was really like a divine download. It wasn't anything that I was just like, oh, let me go research.
Sure.
Information kept coming to me, that, what, how we're going about postpartum is really challenging and almost life threatening because we're like leaving a lot of gaps, right? And even how we prepare for pregnancy. And like I said, I'm coming from the feminine wellness perspective. But when it comes to nutrition, one of the things that I had my students do was I compared the SAD, right, the standard American diet, and it really is sad, with the Caribbean diet. And so I had the graphics for people to see the difference between even what is considered the food groups, okay, I used a Jamaican diet, I used a Grenadian one, and I think I had one that just said Caribbean. But one of the things that was overwhelmingly noticeable about the differences is that even though there were different categories, some of the categories in America would have been all in one group. Now, why does that make a difference? When we were growing up, when I was growing up, we had the food pyramid, right? And it was like, okay, you need to eat this much for the ones on the bottom and less as you go up. And then now we have My Plate, right? USDA created this My Plate, and they're even telling you half of your plate should be, fruits and vegetables, other part being healthy grains. And it's like, okay, meat is this much, dairy is even off the plate. In the case of the Caribbean diet, you have a section that said vegetables, and then you had another section that said starchy vegetables, making a distinction that a root vegetable, a tuber, it is a vegetable, but in fact, it is what? It's a form of energy. It's a starch. It's a carbohydrate, actually. Why does that make a difference? I think we cannot have this conversation if we don't have the conversation called what happened between people of Afro-Asiatic descent not being in their natural cultural habitat and now being in this place of cultural exchange of, let's face it, this is a plantation society. So we are not that far from plantations, right? We know that we have not had, historically in this country, access to the best foods, the foods that are more suitable for our DNA. When I'm talking to you about obesity, I'm really not talking about obesity. I'm really not talking about being overweight. I'm really talking about food selection, food choices, access to the food. And it's not even so much a matter of, I'm not even going to get into food deserts. I'm just more so the access that comes when you don't even know that a food exists or that food is for your particular DNA. And so you see that over time throughout, health and wellness, throughout different people coming to awareness, they're saying, you know what, something is wrong with how Americans in particular approach diet, health, and nutrition. And everything that we do in this country is based on beauty standards and based on economics. But it's not necessarily based on wellness. It's not based on how you feel. So I'm not saying you can look.
It's disguised as that, though. It's disguised as wellness, right? Because that's the new word, right? Wellness. But really, that's not what it is oftentimes. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's a great point. And that's the reason why fat shaming comes in. Because the whole thing about it is it's saying you cannot get people to change by shaming them. And I'm all for that. Now, I'm not going to say that Caribbean culture is a standard, for anything. I'm saying that's where I come from, right? And I'm saying that, I'm laughing to myself because the reason I say it's not the standard is because any Caribbean person knows that if you haven't seen your family in a long time, and you come back around these people and your weight has changed, they're about to tell you,
That's that, and that goes across the board, right? Because I know that, okay, because you have to mentally prepare yourself not to go off on Auntie, because Auntie, I'm gonna respect you, I love you, but don't come for me.
They're like, oh, I see you put on some weight, I see you take up some weight, they'll tell you that. But the reason why, and yes, don't get me wrong, especially when we have other issues going on, or when this is the only time you wanted to give me some feedback, it's toxic. It definitely is. However,
yes,
they are making that distinction. They are making that noticing that because certain types of weight gain are very unhealthy. And I don't understand why we cannot say that in this country. When I made the post, one person came on and she was like, oh, it doesn't have anything to do with that. And, she was so adamant, and it was about us not having.
Let's get to the core of it, because what you were trying to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what you were trying to say is that there is some type of, they do relate to each other at times. When we were talking about unhealthiness, different things are going, like, of course, high blood pressure, diabetes,
diabetes,
thyroid issue. I mean, I mean, the list goes on and on, right? Of
heart
different things.
disease.
Heart disease. Yeah. So, and you were trying to make that distinction, and then yes, there were people that were like, they have nothing to do with each other. Which I mean,
But the reason I brought it up,
sure,
about what she said, is because my response was, tell that to someone whose father died when they were 18 at the age of 56, who he literally had the classic shape that they warn you about. The man with the belly, right? And they warn you that when you collect fat around your midsection, around your organs, that it can be deadly. And in this case, it was, right? And I'm not saying that there's any sweeping generalizations that we should make about everyone's weight. But what I am saying is, here's the personal check-in. The weight that you are currently at, do you feel your most energetic? Do you sleep well? Are you strong at this weight? Does your back feel healthy at this weight? Not just the weight, but the composition of your body, because we know that muscle is heavier than fat. So I don't really want to have a conversation about, we're just looking at the scale. But I find that because of our beauty standards, we sometimes don't tell the truth about what can be healthy and what can be unhealthy. And so in a European beauty standard, we know that it's going to be, you have to be very skinny, right? Model weight is what people are striving for. In Black people, it's like, okay, we want to see some thickness. No dog want a bone, right? So you can be curvy and you can still be healthy. But for example, for me, if I'm going to gain weight, I don't have a pear shape, right? Which is in Black people, that's the desired shape, right?
The hourglass, yes.
Yes, and the hips and all of that.
Yeah.
So I know I'm going to gain weight around my midsection. I know that that's very unhealthy. I also know, why am I gaining this weight? Am I gaining weight because I am snacking because I'm stressed and I'm snacking on processed foods? I'm angry, so I want to eat something crunchy. We don't even understand the emotions that go along with how we're eating. Right?
It's like, yes, yeah.
Right? I feel a lack of love, so I'm reaching for those sugary, cakey type of foods. We're not doing the conscious eating, the mindful eating. I guarantee you, most people are not chewing their food, consciously. Most of us are just reaching for whatever's convenient, whatever's quick. And then we realize that in the Caribbean, it's not that people are necessarily eating less. It's what are you eating? So one of the examples is, there's a proverb that it says, when mango in season, turn down your pot. Now, what does that mean? That means that if mangoes are in season, they're going to be abundant. And all you're doing is eating mangoes. You're not thinking about cooking food as much as you're thinking about eating mangoes, right? That's old. So what does that do to your body? That allows your body, because mango is something that is high in nutrients, but it's also a cleansing and purging type of fruit. It allows your body to have a season of almost eating to purge. Right? And then now the next season comes in and the next fruit is there, or the next vegetable is there. How we eat here in America, you go into the grocery, the food is out of season. So whatever fruits and vegetables are there, you get them all year long. You eat broccoli every day of your life. You might have a mango, it's not in season at all, right? But you're just like, okay, I have this here. What does that do to your body over time when most of the food you're eating doesn't have any real nutritional benefit to it? So you have people who, they look fit, right? They're skinny, but they have malnutrition, right? And then you have people who appear to be, healthy, robust, but they themselves are also suffering from malnutrition. So what I really was asking is, can we have a real conversation where we can talk about health? We can talk about what weight does to our health when it is excessive. And can we talk about what fat in itself, as its composition and its structure, is for? What is the reason for fat? Fat is supposed to be that your body is storing this so that in times of famine, in times of, you're not able to get food, you're able to use that as extra energy, right?
And I'm
Many of
ready.
us,
I have it stored up, so I'm ready.
right.
If ever is, yes,
And
I'm
listen,
ready.
am I
Yeah,
telling y'all this from a perspective? I want to give you all I want to give you a understanding where I'm coming from. I am
yeah.
5'10", okay?
Oh,
And
okay,
I
okay.
weigh over
Oh,
200
fellow,
pounds.
tall girl. I love it.
I weigh over 200 pounds. You
Yeah,
understand what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah,
I'm 47 years old. I live a lifestyle that is a lot less active than it should be. It's a sedentary lifestyle. And I
yeah.
can feel this weight on my bones. When you look at me, you don't think to yourself, oh, she's a morbidly obese, blah, blah, blah. But I know that 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds lighter, I know how I felt. I know the difference between the pain that I had in my back or my knees. And a lot of what we do is we just kind of
Yeah.
are into how we feel and how we look, but we're not into how our health is actually going. I never
So
had a
let's.
blood pressure problem. You know, as far as I know, my heart is fine. But if I know that I have those things in my family, would I just be unconsciously just consuming whatever? You know, so and the other thing is how'd you gain all the weight? Like, you know, Larry King asked DJ Khaled, you know, which is
Yeah.
it's like DJ Khaled is saying all this stuff and he's like, how'd you gain all the weight? You know, because that's how people focus on your weight. But the thing is, for me, what is that weight made of? This
It's
200 pounds,
about that. Let's talk about that because I
right?
think that is something that people miss is that, like you said, when you put on weight, you can feel that thing. Okay, you can feel it. I mean, it's just even just getting up and or moving around, you can feel the differences. Especially for me, living in Michigan, when that winter
Mm.
cold air hits, it hits different when you have that extra weight for sure. So let's talk about what the fat is made of, and then let's also talk about what it does do to our body, because a lot of times people say, oh, well, this just runs in my family, right? Diabetes runs in my family. But what, and this is just me because I'm not a doctor, so this is just my own mindset. But oftentimes for me, it's not necessarily that something runs in your family, those traditions and that
You all eat the same.
yes, so that's what's runs in the family. You know what I mean? Is the way we, like you said, we've learned to eat. Because I remember, I mean, even when I first tried to like take away meat, right? It was torturous within my brain, only because not necessarily that I really just loved meat. It was this idea that it was taught to me that this, like, you have to have a meat, you have to have a starch, you have to have, you have to have these things. You remember, like you said, the little plate in the pyramids, it was taught to us. So let's get to that. Let's talk about what this really does to our body and how it does impact us, so we can get out of that mindset of saying, well, this is just the way it is, so diabetes runs in my family, so it's almost like, why should I change anything, because this is kind of like, just kind of what it is. But no, what it is that it's the cultural way that you're doing things, because we all have like subcultures, right? So it's the cultural way that we're doing things that teaches us to operate this way, and that's what causes things, in my opinion. So go ahead.
All right, so you're bringing up a lot of keen points, and what I'm thinking of, I don't know why, but I'm thinking of okra. Okay, I call it okra. OKRO is how it's spelled in Africa, but here it's known as okra. Okay, why
Yeah,
does this come up to my mind when we're having this conversation? There's a
yeah,
lot of foods that most Black people eat all over the world, and that's one of them. That runs in your family, but most people will tell you, I don't eat that. I don't like that. It's slimy, it's whatever. When I talk to people about feminine wellness, one of the foods that I'm
yeah.
always telling you that you need to put into your body is okra, right? So why do I bring this up? Because we pick and choose the family traditions that we want to continue,
Which is
right?
true. Which is true.
We want to continue the macaroni and cheese. We want to
Because it's good.
continue the candy yams. We want to continue the roti, right? We want to continue all of those things. But a lot of the diet that we come to now believe is our family diet, first of all, it was a celebration diet. Our
It was.
ancestors never ate that every single solitary day of their life. When I
Yeah.
go back far enough, when you say something runs in your family, my thing is, well, go back far enough for when it ran out. So go
Right.
back and ask yourself, what were they eating?
Yeah.
I'm gonna hear about some black eyed peas. I'm gonna hear about some type of greens, no matter where you are. If it wasn't black eyed peas, for my people, it's gonna be pigeon peas, okay? But it's going to be legumes of some sort. It's going to be greens. It's going to be some type of root vegetable. Here it's going to be a sweet potato. For me, it's going to be yam or a different type of sweet potato that's whitish gray inside. We are a plant-based people. Meat is something that people ate on a Sunday. You know, there's when you had your big meat. We ate a lot of soups. We ate a lot of greens. You're not going to tell me that you're eating the ancestral diet of your people and you are just like, man, I have all this excess weight and I don't know how to, because what they're telling me is that you have now something else you need to look at, which is you have some hormonal imbalances. And people say, well, hormonal balances is what causes the fat. So therefore you shouldn't, blame the people for being fat and tell them to lose weight, because you really need to address the hormones. But my thing is, what about the fact that fat secretes hormones? What about the fact that when you are stressed and you are not producing relaxing hormones like serotonin, you're not producing loving hormones like oxytocin, you're producing adrenaline, you're producing cortisol. We know that that causes you to create fat around your midsection, which is the most dangerous. Why? Because what your body is thinking is, if I'm this stressed, it must be war going on. We must have a famine happening. So what I have to do is hold on to weight. We have to be real about a healthy metabolism and what it does in our bodies. And we're just not being honest about it because we don't want to, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want people to hurt our feelings. And so I can't have a real conversation with you. But I know the difference between even children. We have an epidemic of obese children in America. When Michelle Obama was the first lady, she didn't say, okay, what we need to do is gather up all the children who look like they're overweight and starve them. She said, I'm going to plant a garden. I'm going to talk to people about moving. I'm going to show that I'm someone that exercises. So I think that we have to take a holistic approach to it. And one of the ways that we can do that is by acknowledging, you know what? Some of us have a problem. Some of us have this as a problem. But what's the reason? This is just a symptom of something else most of the time. And when I go deeper, it's usually mental health.
Well, in a dependency, it is. It does become a dependency because, like you said, it will supplement or stand in the way of something else. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like you said, if you're lacking certain things, or if you're depressed or sad because of whatever, we do tend to be a little dependent and addicted to that. Because sometimes I know for me, especially when I'm in a creative space, right, and I'm up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning working on things, I will just snack, right? And it's like I don't even. It's almost like a robot. Like you don't even know what you just putting it in because it's like a way. So a way to kind of know if it's a help to stay focused. I don't know the psychology behind it, right? But I know that but I'm aware that happens. So I have to try to be mindful of that. So I can stop that. But so how would you communicate that to someone if someone comes to you and says, hey, I really want to change my diet or I want to do better? I mean, how would you begin that conversation? Because it does seem like people are very sensitive to that right now because nobody wants to be called fat, right? And even if you say to them, hey, I can help you, they hear you're fat. Like no matter how you try to say it, that's what people hear, right? So how would you try to encourage somebody to, kind of redirect?
I think that we cannot have a conversation about fat without having a conversation about what is your goal? What is the reason why you even are coming to me? Most of the time you're coming to me because you want to have a baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Or you are pregnant now, or you've just had a baby. There are other people who may be coming to me because they want to know more about healthy eating. They see me posting all the time, so many different delicious plant-based foods. They want to know, how do I, stop eating as much meat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that we have to deal with the why. We have to deal with inspiration before we deal with information. Yeah. And so when I have those posts on Facebook and I say those one-liner sentences and I say hashtag Yael Talk, it's because I want to have a conversation with you. I want to hear those different sides of what people have to say. And you don't have to come over to my way of thinking, because I'm a doula. First and foremost, I'm here to provide non-judgmental support. So I don't want you to think that I'm a person who is like, oh, you know, my client, the doctor told them that they're overweight, and so I'm going to spend the whole time talking to them about how they need to lose weight. No, my thing is about the inspiration. And part of us having inspiration is us being able to think outside of the current box. The current box that we're in right now is politically correct. Mm-hmm. That's the current box we're in.
Yeah.
The old people used to say whatever come out their mouth, and you had to deal with it, or you had to ignore it. I'm not saying that that was a, you know, the best practice, but I know that I had a chance there to at least hear the truth of what they thought. I think that right now, many people are withholding their messages because they're afraid of backlash. And for me, one of the biggest issues about, like you said, the mindless snacking, most of us are just dehydrated. Most of us are just dehydrated.
Yeah. My friend told me that because I was talking to her about it. She said, she's like, you know what? She said, you are probably dehydrated. And in my mind, I think I drink a lot of water, but probably, you know, I probably could use it more. But a
good guideline for water drinking is, if I'm 200 pounds, I need to drink 100 ounces of water every day. Do I drink 100 ounces of water every day? I don't. So I know that most times, whatever's going on with me, I can always go back to dehydration. The next thing I can go to right away for people is sleep. Most of us are sleep deprived.
I know I am. I mean, I know I
am. Right? We up all night. And like you said, the reason why you're snacking is because your body is starting to shut down. Your body is saying, listen, I want to chill. You eat to keep yourself alert. Okay, that's number one. Because you're burning a lot of calories staying up at that time. Number two, creativity can be, if you channel it properly, is wonderful, but if you don't, it's anxiety producing. So we eat as a calming mechanism. We eat to calm us down. And I noticed, like, I took a certified lactation counselor training, right? And the building that we were in New York City at the time, they had just laid the floor with like all this technology equipment so that the desk could have the stuff plugged in. And they let us know, you cannot eat anything in this room. The only thing you can do is drink water. Okay. So they gave us, you know, it was an 8-hour day for 5 days. So they gave us little breaks and they gave us a lunch break. I would be sitting there and I was falling asleep. And I was thinking about how I would be eating something if I was at my house right now. And when I got out of the class, I realized, I'm like, you mindlessly eat all day long. You were in this class, you really weren't hungry, but you were used to, like you said, just having something to snack on. So what I would say to those people and to myself, especially come from a Caribbean perspective, keep fruit around. Even for children, you know, you have your bowl, right? Where you have your different type of fruits, you know, things that they necessarily, you know, may not see regularly. And it's like, oh, what is that? You know, if I have a pomegranate, my son's every day, he's going to ask me, can he have that, until I cut it open? You know, we have to begin to start our nourishment with fruit and vegetables as the main base. I don't care if you are paleo, you're, you know, keto, you're plant-based, you're omnivore, whatever your particular way of approaching your diet is, fruits and vegetables are going to be the basis of it. According to whatever you believe, you'll choose which ones are best for your body, because I know everybody's not going to do well, you know, eating the same exact fruits and vegetables. But I feel like that is the simplest start and the most effective start. When you look at people all over the world, when you look at people in Asia, do they have massive rates of obesity? But when you go in, look in their market, I mean, how much fruit and vegetables do you see?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's about habit too. You know, I mean, again, you know, because I mean, when my children were younger, I always had bowls out of, like, you know, apples, bananas, whatever, that they could just kind of have easy access to. Right. And that was always something that I kept out on the counter. But, you know, I think about habit, you know, and if you are taught a certain thing or buying a big pack of ramen noodles, you know, as opposed to buying, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, you know, if you are taught that way and that becomes your habit form lifestyle, it is a matter of reprogramming, you know, and getting out of that. And, you know, and then let's just be honest, you know, potato chips taste better sometimes than an apple to some people, right? So it's
Because
again,
you have trained your palate.
well, again,
And
that's
because
what I'm saying.
someone that
Yes,
you love gave you a potato chip at a birthday party, and you associate happiness and celebration with potato chips, and you had that little sad apple that wasn't even ripe and in season, you had that on your lunch tray at school, and so the apple was always the thing you threw away. You ate the beef patty, you got the frozen pizza, you did all that, but you always threw the fruit away. And you
right.
mentioned, you said, you know, the ramen noodles, and you said, you know, which is not bad. And I'm gonna be polarizing. It is bad.
What I'm saying is that no, what I'm saying is that I don't judge people for their access
Their
or what
food
they do.
choices.
So what you choose to do on your journey is what you do on your journey. So what I'm saying is that I never want to I don't want to shame somebody, right? We'll use that word into what their choices are, because some people do it out of necessity, some people do it in lack of, because we talked about food deserts and lack of access. And yes, you know, and where they don't even have no fresh produce around them, quite honestly. And then the produce they have, like you said, is rotting, is not good. So that's what I mean by that. Yes,
So
I
I
don't
would
eat
say to
noodles myself, but yeah,
them that see, now that's another thing. Like, back to what I'm saying. The people whose culture the ramen comes from, do they eat that every day? And are they eating that particular, are they eating the
well,
oodle
there's
of
a difference than what they're eating and what they sell
that
in the store.
ramen is not the same ramen as what
Right,
you have here in America. We have to
right,
call a thing a thing. If something is
yeah,
a process, you know, it's not even a food if you want to tell the truth about it. And it's an
right.
invention. It's created by American corporations that it's basically to keep you addicted. We know that we have high fructose corn syrup. We know that we have high levels of sodium. It makes you want to eat more of it, but it doesn't satiate you. So for
Of
them, I would
course.
say, I have to say to them, okay, tell me your choices, and then let's look at which one is going to be the one that's going to produce the best outcome,
And
right?
again, that goes back to reprogramming. That goes back to reprogramming, because people are programmed to, again, you know, I really like how you pointed out where, you know, that child, you know, got a cupcake when they did good. You know, that was always our thing, right? If you did good or a celebration, you get a piece of cake, you get a cupcake, you get a cookie. You know, if you do good, if you do your homework, I'm gonna give you this cookie. You know, the reward was not very often was it an apple. You know what I mean? So yes, we do associate these things. So this is about, you know, reprogramming the brain. I'm glad you touched on that, because that is a real psychological thing. Like it's a real thing. So thank you for
Can
touching
I
on
tell
that.
you a story about
Sure.
that? A
Yeah,
brief story.
sure.
My mother comes from Grenada, okay, small island in the Caribbean,
Yeah,
the closest to Trinidad and Barbados. It's right in between in that area, okay?
sure. Yeah,
She said that when she was growing up, for Xmas, okay, because that's how she grew up celebrating,
sure.
they would give them an apple. They could have got an apple, and they would, you know, it would be like, okay, you slicing it for everybody to be able to share this red apple.
Yeah,
Why was that a treat? Because that doesn't grow in that region of the world. Those are foreign. Those are imported. That was like a, oh my goodness, it's expensive and it's a
yeah,
special treat. So now imagine how many apples she eats here today, right? Like
yeah.
always has apples around, because that was a symbol of, like you said, that celebration, that
That love,
special
that
moment.
togetherness.
And
Yeah,
it's almost luxurious, right? It's almost rich. So you really have to understand what programming has done to us as a people.
yeah,
I'm
it's true.
tired of just pretending that our ancestors ate like this. We didn't eat like this. And we have
Right,
to look at our overall health. We have to look at our rates of maternal mortality, infant mortality. We have to look at the rate of Black men death compared to other groups of people. Black women being so prevalent to heart attacks, all of these things. And we
right,
ask
right,
ourselves, did our ancestors deal with that same, outcome? And don't get me
right,
wrong, the
right.
stress of living in a racist society
Hmm.
is a whole other health concern and a whole other factor that creates a whole, you know, concoction of negative things in your body. But at the same time, what's in your control?
Yeah.
Even when we say, you know, people don't have access, even that conversation, even that conversation about people not having access, we go where we want to go for what we want to eat. Most of the people that I'm speaking to are not below the poverty line. Even the people who are receiving food stamps, even the people who are receiving WIC gives checks specifically for fruits and vegetables. WIC has, there's farmers market where you can use WIC, where you can use your EBT. It has to come down to your food choices at the end of the day. I understand budgeting. I understand. I'm not coming from a perspective of somebody who is, you know, just, I mean, I think abundantly. I always want to speak abundance and, you know, and attract abundance. But listen, y'all, I know what it is. I went to the grocery the other day and literally spent probably $7 in the grocery. And I had a little bit of things at home that I put together. And I put together this whole spread, and it was tacos, right? But it was the handmade corn taco tortilla, not the shell that's already preformed, right? So it was just the corn, water, lime, salt, whatever. I had beans, right? I got some cucumber. I got one green plantain, right? Made some tostones. And then I had this whole meal together, and it served about 4 to 5 people. And my daughter was in shock. She kept saying, I can't believe this was only $7. I can't believe, because it was filling. It was healthy. It was, I'm letting some people, like, you know, I'm not against fat. It's as a nutrient. Like, I don't think we should be saying people shouldn't eat fat. I think it's about you not having unhealthy fats. You know, I think
we can really break that down in regards to, like, you know, knowing how to cook homemade, right? Or you having that. I mean, it's still a lot of dynamics to this in regards to resources that people have, what they see as priorities, what they've been taught. This is all reprogramming, because some people see things, okay, what is my priority right now? Do I want to get this, spend $5 on this to spend to feed my children so I can use the other whatever amount of dollars for this? Again, this goes back to priority. It goes to resources, and it does go to access for some people, right?
It goes also to sacrifices that you're willing to make, because where I live, the community that I live in, people don't walk in my community. Okay, I don't live in Brooklyn anymore. I live in North Carolina, and where I am, you see nothing but cars. And I don't drive. Not that I can't drive, but right now I'm not driving. We walk to the supermarket. Now, of course, nobody walks to the supermarket. Had I taken a taxi, right, that would have been an additional transportation cost. Or if had I taken the bus or whatever. So what I'm saying is, the same way that we shift our priorities for the clothes we want, for the eyelashes.
If you see it, again, I'm getting back to the mind part. If you see it as a priority, that's the base of it. If you don't see it as a priority, of course you won't. I mean, and that's where the reprogram of the brain comes from. That goes back to, you know, self-worth, PTSD, anxiety. It's so many things, depression. It's so many different things that is this vicious cycle, right? Because we know that food can help cause and heighten some of these things, but then some of these things also cause you to eat some of the wrong things. So it's a vicious cycle. So again, you were blessed to, you know, come from a really good background as far as, like, you know, just understanding things and coming from a culture of people who, you know, taught you how to cook and taught you, you know, how to eat and stuff like that. Some people literally don't have that, right? So that's why it's really nice for people like yourself to help educate and help reprogram some people's minds, because some people never have the access even to learning that type of information. Because people say Google it, but I Google stuff all the time that I still don't understand, you know, or it doesn't really impact me because it's not I don't feel like it particularly pertains to me. Do you get what I'm saying?
I hear you, but I don't agree. And I'm gonna tell you why I don't agree, because if I took a poll right now, the majority of the people, if I ask them how to be healthy, they're going to tell me drink a lot of water, have fruits and vegetables, make sure you get your sleep. We know all these things. It's not a matter of us not having access to knowledge. It's us having the inspiration and the motivation and the discipline to actually apply it. I just told you I was 18 years old and my father died. There was no reason for him. I mean, of course, everything is in the Creator's hands, but there was no reason for him to have congestive heart failure, all of these different things. This is the same man who I was introduced to herbs by, because I saw him cure himself of having to use insulin, right? When he was diagnosed with diabetes, which came because he was overweight. Sure. Okay. He said he didn't want to take insulin, and I watched him use herbs to take himself off of that. But the whole concept is, if nobody's going to have a real conversation, or no one's going to really look at, why am I overeating?
Yeah.
He knew the same thing. The stuff I'm telling you, he knew, but his favorite foods were his chicken, his rice and peas, his flour, different things that he would bake. I mean, he was a great cook. I learned how to cook from him. So it would be a disservice to that, shortened lifespan for me to just be like, well, it's because, we don't know. At this point, we know, but we look at people.
That's not what I'm saying, that people don't know. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I guess because of the work that I've done as far as like working with different families and watching them literally not have access to stuff as far as like even mentally. I mean, not being in a situation where
sometimes people don't have access to even cook. Sometimes people don't.
Not even just the access to cooking, but just the knowledge of how do I want to say it?
Food combining
and get themselves out of a certain hole. Like it's so many dynamics to this. So I guess for me, I always like to be careful for myself to just say, well, it's just this easy, just do it. Because it's not like that for everybody.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
not saying you. I'm speaking for myself. Like for me, I try to be very careful of that because everybody has different experiences. Everybody has different backgrounds. Some people never see their parents cook anything. Like literally, they open up cans, they open up boxes. They never really see them actually cook. Or they grow up eating fast food literally every day. I mean, or nothing at all. I work with families where they literally don't eat that much because their parents are on drugs or alcoholics or gamblers. So I just like to be careful with that for myself, because I do know that people just really don't know what to do. Like, even though we all can say, oh, if you want to write a book, you just write stuff down, you publish it, you do. But actually doing that process and doing things.
It is a process. It's true.
It's different. So I like to be like kind of empathetic that way and saying that, what my experience is and what I saw is different from somebody else. So how can I educate them and then, help them again, reprogram that thinking that, oh, I can do this. This is something that I can do. I can learn different things. I mean, because that's one thing me and one of my friends always talk about. Every person that is overweight can tell you how to lose weight. We all can say, we know what to do, but it's a matter of actually putting it into practice and like really getting your brain to see those connections. So that's
which is why I said it comes back to inspiration, not necessarily education. And I don't want to be like I'm harping on this point because I think that I'm not being clear. I want to say this.